Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier, bringing you the latest news and initiatives that focus on the development of cybersecurity economics. You don't have to be a computer or cybersecurity expert to get plugged in. Your host brings it straightforward, asks the tough questions, and brings the cyber world to a level of understanding for everyone. You can find us on the web at www.newcyberfrontier.com. Now join our host as he introduces the topic for today's new Cyber Frontier.
Welcome to today's episode of New Cyber Frontier. On today, all three of the New Cyber Frontier hosts, and I'm kind of playing the host, but all of us could be. Dr. Murray, Tim Montgomery, welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey guys.
Yep, and myself, Dr. Gorog. We are bringing you a little talk, just kind of the three of us at the beginning of the year. We always kind of sit back and say, what did we see and what happened over the course of the year as we turn the corner to the next phase, which we can always say that starts anytime, but it's good to group it at the time when everybody else does, the new year, 2025. So 2025, Happy New Year and welcome to the new revolution, whatever we want to call 2025.
Welcome to the new Cyber Frontier.
There you go.
Hey, that's a good one. That's right.
So if we said, let's classify, do we have any thoughts on, what's this year? What's coming up? What do we call it?
I think the big thing on it, we got an administrative change tomorrow, right? So the Trump administration's taking over. There's some of Biden's work that, he'll get to, him and his cabinet get to choose what's going on. Supreme Court is supposed to rule as soon as tomorrow on the big TikTok ban in the United States, which may be enabled as soon as Sunday. So that's one of the big issues. Generative AI and the complexities of that with artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence with deepfakes, and sock puppets and misinformation, disinformation, information disorder overall. I think there's a lot of the things that are just a continuum, right? And so I think those are the big things. And then we're ending the year 2024 with Salt Typhoon, the Chinese initiative on collecting our text messages and our email and communication. So all of a sudden Signal looks really good. WhatsApp looks really good for alternatives. But there's lots to talk about here, guys.
Yeah.
The executive orders that came out over the past 2 years about how much they're trying to strengthen the executive piece for cybersecurity to basically trend it where it's becoming more serious. We need to have a bigger place at the table and more say-so. Looks like the government is actually trying to do some enforcement there. So that's something that happened.
And to your point, Tim, I was reading, so I subscribe to Law 360. We've talked about this in previous shows. So it's a subscription. I get a daily dump of the most significant things that are happening. And I subscribe specifically to cyber and privacy. And one of the things I read yesterday was interesting. It's been in the make, and that is the Federal Acquisition Oversight Committee made a ruling yesterday, and they are going with a CUI standardized approach, so classified, unclassified, controlled unclassified information across all federal agencies. I can tell you with all of the federal agencies I do business with, in the Department of State, and Department of Energy, Department of Defense, I think DOD is the only one that really has a mature approach with the CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. Now the National Archives manages and oversees the CUI program, but it's not consistent throughout the federal government. And so the Federal Acquisition Regulation Oversight Committee made a ruling that says we've got to do a consistent approach on managing CUI and our supply chains. So I thought that was pretty significant.
Yeah, you're right, because the supply chains themselves have been, there's been quite a few issues, and I think they've honed in on some of the focus factors of gap within that maturity model. So it seems to me like they got to a place that the maturing level is starting to happen. We're starting to see some enforcements at higher levels coming down to sub contracting and those type of supply measures that we get, where the vulnerabilities usually exist in smaller pieces. So yeah, it seems like that's taken off last year too. And this year, I'm pretty sure, especially when you're saying generative AGI, I can only imagine everything. AI is in everything.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's hear from our sponsors. I think I heard something say everything's speeding up. That's what I caught if I just sat back and listened to the two of you. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Blockframe Technology offers next-generation blockchain managed trust and security. Unique non-fungible tokens are used to secure software bills of materials to provide data quality and security for every transaction in your supply chain. Deploy advanced peer-to-peer product security, scale zero trust capability to millions of IoT devices, allow vendor tracking and accountability, and rapidly reset from compromise. Unchangeable, time-sequenced blockchain data provides next-generation security using machine learning trust algorithms and audit analytics. Start securing your supply chain today by contacting Blockframe at www.blockframetech.com.
Welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. On today with Tim Montgomery, Dr. Murray, and myself, Dr. Gorog. Before the break, we were talking about what the new year transition has in store. And this show we're kind of devoting to that transition we always do at the beginning of a new season. But I heard speeding up. Everything seems to be speeding up, but at the same time, changing administration. Which one is? I think the last couple shows we talked so much about AI and the information coming out of it, and now you hear so many people saying, "Oh, I use AI for this and that," and my emails have sped up with people knowing all kinds of things about me. And these emails, you can obviously tell that they're made by something that scanned my whole website and said, "Oh, we're glad that you do this, this, and this, and we really enjoy how this maps with this, and you really take this approach to do this." And it's like, no one person would take 5 or 6 things off my website and be able to put them together like that. So you know exactly what they've done. What does that do in the future? How does that look like? Everybody's doing it, so when everybody's super, no one is.
Yeah, I think the big thing is you can't generally distinguish at some points between real and what might have been generated by AI. Academia itself has been plagued for the last year or two about this, and some universities embraced use of it as long as it only did certain things, which nobody could. At this point, they used to use a detector of some kind that wasn't AI. But now they can't even use that because they started using that and they started failing people, and then that became an issue. And then you've got some universities that don't want it at all and will tell you straight up what their policies are. And I'm sure you got variations in between that. So I just think it's, like you said, the deep fake concept. And you can really, really fake something pretty good. The other hand of that is if you can't afford an assistant anymore, this person or this AI thing that you can pay, $20 for a month seems to come in really handy sometimes, especially if you're getting yourself into writing material you might need, let's say a will or itinerary that on a vacation, right? So I mean, good and bad, and yes, you're right. Speeding up is the concept here, and I see crazy things happening. I think there's no real control. I don't know. We're in the wild, wild west with this thing. I don't know what your guys' opinions are, but.
So last Friday I got invited out to this, there's this neat little community, like this little club that was actually established here in Colorado Springs over 100 years ago by General Palmer himself, called the Winter Nightclub. And so a lot of think tank, thoughtful, intelligent conversations and different topics, not just cyber, but all kinds of different topics. But I got invited to discuss, these issues. So disinformation, information disorder, deep fakes, and back to your point, right? So lots of concerns in all of these areas. AI, let's talk about it from productivity, right? So we're talking about speeding things up. AI is making things very, very efficient in various industries, transaction industries. In our industry, technologies that we're seeing traditional IDS, IPS, 5th gen, next gen firewalls are traditionally signature based. Yeah, we came up with heuristic based, anomaly based. Well, now AI is really providing a means to be able to detect real anomalies, real behavior, UEBA, user behavior analytics to be able to determine when someone's most likely to or is likely to be doing something. I have a client that's using AI in an application called Prodigal. And so they do consumer engagements where they have to record the engagements and they have to inform, they're in the banking financial industry, and so they have to inform the consumer of the engagement. Well, Prodigal is the AI listening to the entire conversation to determine the willingness of the consumer on the other end as to whether or not they're going to get a loan or pay that loan back, to determine whether or not they should move forward with that engagement based on inflection, mannerism, words that are being used. It's also used being for compliance activity for the financial person on the other end of the line. Are they going through it and are they saying all the things that they're supposed to be doing? Are they doing their due diligence, checking the identity of the consumer before they engage in the conversation? All of this, and I'm watching this happen in real time as an example. And, when we as consumers contact our bank to try and troubleshoot something, normally they say, hey, this is so-and-so, I'm calling on a recorded line, is this Sean Murray? Well, I know that's on a recorded line, so that's something standard. But now, do I know, do I need to provide consent that you're going to use an artificial intelligent agent to just not record me, but every aspect of the engagement? That's beyond what I think or my concept of recording me is. And then can that be used against me in a court of law? And I'm going to probably have defense challenging, you didn't provide informed consent as to what you were doing. I didn't provide consent. These are some complex things we're going to have to figure out over the next year or so.
That is an interesting thought on consent. And is an AI tool allowed to be used without somebody's consent? I know even the little note taker AI companion on Zoom, you could pop up, and I accidentally hit it once, and then I realized, wait, it made a whole transcript of my meeting, and I thought I canceled it, And every time you log on to a lot of people's meetings, there's their AI assistant. And it just seems to, is it something where everybody accepts it on the call or no one? Is there a consent thing? That is a good point, Sean.
There's always disclaimers for like the recording, right? And everyone gets that pop up. The one thing I think of is legislation. Is it keeping up with the evolution of AI? That's where you start to look at consent and whether there's a law that protects you from such things, which we know that there are laws that cover such things, but as the laws evolved to encompass this type of thing going on now, and that phenomenon moving at, like we said, exponential rate here, is it going to be able to keep up? And I would say probably not, because we've seen the privacy issues.
In some sense, I think we're too late on some of it, right? So the EU has published their legal opinion on what's responsible, what's ethical. I had an opportunity to work with Lauren Williams. She was the director of cyber at the White House a couple of years ago, and putting together, there's no way to put together the executive legislation necessary to issue an executive order in that time frame, not responsibly to encompass everything, but we did, I was able to participate in contributing to the White House's AI blueprint that they published. So some guidelines to consider, at least, not a mandate, but at least a methodical approach for those things that you need to consider in a business, in a nonprofit, in a highly regulated industry. Those all things that need to be considered. And it's a conversation I'm having with other CISOs across the globe. In Europe, earlier this year, I was in Poland. I opened up their national conference talking about these things, and then I got invited to a CISO event, the top 50 CISOs, in an event the night prior that I wasn't aware that I was going to be at. And The person who was the keynote presenter that evening was the Minister of IT for the country of Poland. And they're talking about the NIS2, the new law, the updated NIS law in the supply chain risk management associated with all these technologies. So the conversations are being had, the concerns are there. To your point, Tim, the legislation is going to be different. It's going to come fast. It's not going to be effective in areas where it needs to, and the technology is already out there. So how do we harness the harm that we've already done, and how do we prevent unethical use while we contribute to society by using it ethically to solve problems? It's going to be exponential in medical technology and solving complex issues. I think it's going to help on the quantum side. I'm encouraged on the use of it, the ethical, but I'm discouraged on lack of legislation and control of it.
Let's take a break here from our sponsor. We'll be right back in a minute.
Blockframe Technology offers next-generation blockchain managed trust and security. Unique non-fungible tokens are used to secure software bills of materials to provide data quality and security for every transaction in your supply chain. Deploy advanced peer-to-peer product security, scale zero trust capability to millions of IoT devices, allow vendor tracking and accountability, and rapidly reset from compromise. Unchangeable, time-sequenced blockchain data provides next-generation security using machine learning trust algorithms and audit analytics. Start securing your supply chain today by contacting Blockframe at www.blockframetech.com.
Welcome back to New Cyber Frontier. We definitely got stuck on the AI topic, didn't we? That seems to come front and center, and came full circle back to the ethics of it. And I think that part seems to come up every time there's a conversation, but yet all the products are blowing full steam ahead without really thinking about it. So is it the genie's already out of the bottle? It's kind of like our data's already mixed together in a big pot. You can't get it back. I mean, you guys know me that I'm focused on how can we individualize it? How can we start to get tools that make these human controls? But the ethics about, okay, how fast should we be adopting it? If you can see a way to make money, is there any reason you should put the brakes on?
Well, innovation should never be stifled. I think that's a key factor. But what that means to me is that the people who are creating the legislation need to hurry up, and they need to put on the gas. So if they want things to move and to flow, because we know exponentially this is moving at a faster pace, and it seems like every year it's just getting exponentially faster, hence exponentially. The fact is these guys have got to find a way to get better at legislating. So that seems to be the stigma.
Who is these guys? That I always ask that question. People say someone needs a legislator.
So you look at local levels, you look at lawmakers who basically have come across in state level, federal levels. It just depends on, I mean, even when you talk about the C-suite and their policies with use of AI, or an application with their use of AI, and universities with their use of AI. Now, I know there's a lot that's come out, but it seems like we need something that flows, I would say, top down, basically, for a standardization of some type. Or maybe we just all come up with stuff and throw it in a pot and mix it up together and see what works. And as we go along, we modify, which is probably going to be the way it works. So when I say there's a consistency across many industries that are deploying AI everywhere, which all need to be cognizant of what you said, ethics. And I'm sure they are. And there's a lot of conversations like you alluded to, Dr. Murray, on this front. But the legislation, when it comes to that, we're talking about state, local, whatever it seems to, it has to align with what's going on with us. So,
so just kind of elaborating, I mean, we've been in digital privacy, we've been taking the focus to global stance to say we need to focus on the individual. Privacy needs to start with the individual and go from there. So, the first couple years of working on that is to circulate a model that says, hey, let's put the human, the individual at the center, and then look how everything connects to that and start thinking about privacy, thinking about our security, thinking about the use of our information, our data from that centric, and stop thinking about the data, the company is the center, and the people are a data set and a group of people, a collection here of this and a collection of that, collection of systems. We have a collection of users, but say, okay, what does it look like when we make the user centric? What do you guys think about that? As far as if we're making a recommendation right now, policymakers might be listening. How would we recommend that they engage?
That's part of my discussion. Exactly. So we're not just talking about all the bad things and the things that we're worried about. We have to still pivot and focus on the future of other technologies, such as what you and Blockframe are doing, right? The digital identity revolution over the next 5 years is going to help solve some of these problems we're talking about right now. So how am I assured? We know, I brief this all the time, 10% of social media profiles right now on any platform are sock puppets. They're digital representations of humans using AI to interact with people, social engineering. Oh, look, I see you're an Eagles fan too, and you like this. And so that human intelligence gathering that we as humans, may not be aware of, right? So I think the digital identity, and I'm calling it the digital identity revolution. I think blockchain is going to help solve that problem. Mm-hmm. The interaction I've had with you and your technology and the things that the people you're interfacing with on a global perspective, some of the great use cases that have been proven through the blockchain technology that you specifically have developed and tested, I think it's going to be a revolution, and it's really going to help on the attestation side for humans and all of the relationships they have. And I talked about this the other night. Me, Sean Murray, I'm a cyber professional. Everyone knows that, but do you know that I like to play soccer? I play on 3 different teams. I play indoors. I play outdoors. I track teams and leagues, and that's part of a different social aspect of who I am as a person, a different culture. I also have a family. We like to ski. We like to go on vacation. We like to drink wine. There's different things that we do health-wise that are not normal to what other people are doing. All of these things, I have different social groups that I belong to that make me who I am, and I need to be able to protect all of who I am. And that digital identity, I think, is going to help do that.
Mm-hmm. And when I've heard that, when I think of digital and identity, that's the person. Data, that's their usage. Could be trends, could be whatever. How's that work? And then we're talking about the government setting up regulations, and so there's some semblance of we need to have a control structure. But maybe that control structure looks entirely different than what we're used to. Bear with me for a minute, and let's take a different alternate thought process, and let's say that the equivalent of 60 to 80% of the people working entirely digital. All the fruits of their labor are digital. There's nothing they do that's physical. I know that's the case with me. Everything goes through my window, which is this computer. Every result of the products is all digital that I do for my whole life. So now basically we come into this window to the world, this computer, to our world, this computer. We could VPN into another planet in another galaxy, work there all day, and come home, right? And everybody could VPN into a different planet. Everybody could VPN into a separate planet. When they come home, everything they did stays in that remote location. So now let's come back and say the physical government that's based around geographical borders and controls and groups and rivers and cities and infrastructure, is that relevant to this world?
Yes and no, right?
Could there be a new form of government that is virtual? It's just the thought process when we're talking at high level, and this is when we talk to IEEE, we're looking at the Industry Advisory Board and the next generation of standards, and everybody's kind of coming to the same conclusion that this whole virtual existence has its own government scheme, its own governance, its own maybe even different group of people that would be involved in that control structure. And it might not be a geographical government because they all want to control what's in their area. But is that VPN, is that work in another planet in their jurisdiction?
Well, that comes down to authority or assumed authority. So one of the other organizations that I'm a member of is the International Internet Society. We have over 100,000 members. The primary goal of the Internet Society is to bring the internet to those parts of the world where we have underprivileged or disadvantaged communities worldwide. But then we have breakouts. We have chapters doing other things, and I belong part of the Interstellar chapter, where we've already determined and published. It's on the public environment. We've built out the architecture for the lunar internet. We've built out the architecture for the Martian internet, and we have 150 conceptual model for the architecture for the solar system internet. So what you're saying, we're already talking about it, right? We're at other planets, we're doing this, but the one thing that we are all concerned about that nobody can seem to solve this problem is that governance aspect and the authority. Other than maritime, how would you manage those relationships outside of the planet? Exactly. And then, you're going to want to say, well, the outer space is good for everybody. There shouldn't be any, no, everybody's going to have their own agenda, political agenda, until, we start interacting with, people, beings from other, worlds and stuff like that, which is not that far-fetched today, right? So then we're going to get into other complex issues. Life, health, safety, all of those things need to be governed as we figure all of this stuff out. But to your point, there's an element of virtual reality that can make that really a reality. I'm going to go, I'm going to go work on Mars today. And when I did my doctoral program between 2008 and 2011, one of our professors, she was a professor over the ingenuity aspect of the pervasiveness of future technologies, and she made us do all of our classroom in Second Life. And so what you're talking about, Chris, already exists in some format where we would meet in Second Life for class. And then, she had her own property that she owned in Second Life. I think she's still in there. I had to, I'm like, man, and I was concerned because, man, I don't have to travel across the world now to conduct espionage. Yeah. I can just meet somebody in a bar somewhere that they own that nobody else has access to. So who's to say we can't do that on another planet?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna basically trade, 2 hours of your time that I purchased already, a 1/50th of a fractional car that I can buy that somebody else has given me, a CPA business hours, somebody that makes a dolls, I have a credit for a doll, and I'm going to trade those all to Tim to get something else I need. So now, not mentioning that it's a barter system, it's a value system, it's a trade proposition that we can all do in this remote galaxy. And then when we come home, we kind of have everything we need. So, the point that, and this is something that been circulating relatively recently, is there another structure for government that takes over geographical kind of in the future? And I think it's something worth thinking about now, as you are, Dr. Murray, and let's take a look at it. And it starts with the relationships that we know as humans to each other, implementing those relationships, making ethics for those relationships, and control structures for misusing those relationships. And that's what that government becomes.
I think there's a basis behind that type of ethic methodology. So it will base itself off of what we know today, even if it molds itself into something different in consideration to its environment, like you said, on another planet or in virtual reality. And yeah, I'm sure virtual reality will help augment such a concept. So, but I still think a bit of it's going to be resemblance of, like you said, trade, right? We're trading, bartering, things like that where we do today, but it's just the construct is paper money or credit, or it's not, I've got 6 chickens, you're going to give me a pig for 6 chickens. It used to be, I'm sure. So, and it may go back to that somewhere. And maybe these days, some people actually do that still. I know I'll trade milk for eggs. So,
Yeah.
so I think those things are kind of locked into our society. So there'll be resemblance of that. I think if you look at a new structure of some kind that's similar to it, but we'll have a different flavor,
Yeah.
different distribution, if you will.
I think
like lending, right?
Yeah, I think in some ways we need to start looking at, maybe our next generation of political leaders are the people that understand what's needed in the virtual world, because that's where most of us spend our time. And I think that's something I'd love to see Dr. Murray run for some office and take that role, because I think that what's needed is people that can lead us into this new era of what governance is, and it might not be government.
Right. Well, I think that the government could trend into personalities and characters that resemble what the society should, what it is today.
Yeah.
So you get into individuals that kind of lost some of the disposition on what today really means in our society and how we deal with those things. I think they're going to need some help. They're going to need individuals that will step to the plate and not only play that role, but have the knowledge, things that we all know. Like the rest of us, we do 4 or 5 things, and we're kind of knowledgeable about a ton of things, not just one specific thing. So as humanity tries to move itself, it's going to need people like that really help produce legislation or governance, we'll say, and it will mold the government and change it as we go along. So there's some predictability in that, and there's also, like you said, there's the planet, the whole concept of the planet, those types of things. So
yeah, I think that's what I think is moving into this year. I think these are the topics that really start to need to be addressed, because we've basically sped so many things up that we need to start putting the controls around them and the governance around them, and not like throwing them out, but just saying, well, how do we react to them? But I think that's kind of a wrap, I think, for today, unless you guys have anything closing, and we'll call it a day. And thanks for joining this kind of first recorded episode in 2025.
Thanks, guys.
Year.
Yeah, it's good getting back on and having this discussion.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of New Cyber Frontier. Remember to get involved. Often we think that someone else will handle privacy and security in the virtual world, but you are the only one truly in command of your virtual fate. Join our mailing list so we can keep you informed of breaking news and new releases. If you have an idea, if you have a question that you would like to hear answered, or if you want to get involved with our efforts, reach out to us at newcyberfrontier.com. We also encourage you to visit our sponsors' links, as they are the ones that really make this show possible. I want to thank each of you for supporting the show, and we look forward to seeing you back for the next episode of New Cyber Frontier.